Everyone wants to know what the future holds, and some seek to learn what that path will be through divination. Tarot card readings are one form of divination that is well known in the West, and yet very young compared to other spiritual practices.
In fact, tarot card reading was added to the canon of occult practice only a few hundred years ago, making it a mere toddler in comparison to other ancient practices such as astrology. But can a gifted reader really tell you what your future might be, or what to watch out for along the path, merely by pulling cards from a divine deck? That's what we set out to uncover in this episode of
Is That For Real?
Perfect.
So, there's a little background for you, but is tarot card reading for real? Can you really tell the future or someone's fortune off a set of cards? Or is it just, someone who's good at cold reading people with a little bit of confirmation bias mixed in? What do you think, Diasis? Do you believe in tarot cards and readings?
I'll tell you this much, John. In the last month, I have gone from agnostic, skeptic, somewhat believer, to believer.
I know you have. You told me all about that.
Too many tarot people around me have said things that hit way too close to home for it to be guesswork, in my opinion.
Yeah, that they could not have known and you've never discussed with them.
No flippin' way.
Yeah. See, my skeptical side says, what are you reading off of me?
Yeah.
But I've had an experience too, because we both went to a psychic to get a tarot reading done for this show. And we have an expert who's actually a tarot reader, professional, on the show who's going to do an interview. And he's got a very growing, fast rising channel. What's it called again?
He's Occult.
Occult.
In my opinion, he does some of the most accurate pick a card tarot readings on YouTube. He's awesome.
Yeah, and his name's Bryce, and we're going to have him on a little bit. And he offers some really interesting insights that coincide with some of the stuff that I studied and did the research for when we did the Law of Attraction episode.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about that once we get to it.
All connected.
But before we get into our personal experiences and then show the interview with Bryce, I want to talk a little bit about the history of where tarot comes from, because I was really surprised. You think of tarot cards, right? At least I did. You think of this ancient historical method. You think it's like thousands of years old, like some of the other stuff we've studied, like astrology. I thought it was going to go way
That's what
back.
I was thinking. Yeah, because we were talking about it before the show, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's actually pretty darn new. The actual creation...
They started it like last week.
2-3 weeks ago. The actual creation of the tarot card set only goes back to mid-15th century Europe. But it was just a card game. It was literally like just you played cards. It wasn't...
So they say.
It wasn't, according to scholars and historians, it wasn't connected to any kind of occult belief or practice. It was literally something you did to pass the time with your buddies. It was a game, and it still is.
Damn it, I keep getting the death card.
As you're eating the peanuts, and they get stuck in your throat. And it still is. They still play tarot, the games, and it has different names.
You mean just as a regular game?
Yeah, it's just a game.
You mean like there ain't a bunch of wizards and witches sitting around playing it? It's people, just regular Joes.
Yeah, these aren't like occultists, psychics telling people's fortune. They're literally playing cards like you would play blackjack or something like that.
Oh, my God.
But that's mostly in the non-English...
Oh, just throwing around your destiny, that's all.
That's the non-English speaking parts of Europe. Now, the English speaking parts are different. They largely view tarot in the way we have come to view tarot, as something that people use for fortune telling. But that actually started in the 1780s. According to scholars and historians, that doesn't go back but a couple of hundred years.
They finally saw the bloody mysticism behind it.
Yet the irony of it, this is hilarious to me. I thought this was funny. What I found was the earliest reference to tarot cards being used for divination only dates back to the 1780s in a fiery sermon given by a Dominican preacher against the evils of the devil's instrument. Yeah, and that the practice of fortune telling using regular playing cards, just normal deck of cards, it started a couple of decades before.
I think they'd be doing that shit back in Egypt or Babylon or something.
Now, we'll get to that in just a second, but now the historians say that people started doing the card reading, cardography, they call it, using just regular cards like we would play, poker with. And then someone got the bright idea, well, hey, if they do that with a regular deck of cards...
Let's just put a little divination on it.
Well, no, if they can do the divination with regular cards, why not tarot cards, which have all these cool, freaky images on them?
We'll do that, too. You can put any kind of energy you want on them.
Yeah, there you go. But the irony is that nobody thought of tarot cards as being an occult thing. It was just a game until Protestant preachers and clerics decided they didn't like the imagery in the cards, and they started connecting it to the occult, and suddenly everybody thinks tarot cards are from the occult. And
dark side.
It's the old tree of knowledge of good and evil syndrome. Really?
It only made it more popular.
That only made it more popular.
Don't do these damn magic tarot cards. What's magic tarot cards?
Yes. Now it's not just blackjack. Now it's something special.
Don't eat that cake. Wait, what cake?
Yeah, exactly right. Now, it's interesting, though, that's what the scholars and that's what historians say, but people who are enthusiasts say, no, it goes back further than that it goes all the way back to ancient Egypt.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm wondering.
They claim it goes back to ancient Egypt, to the Book of Thoth, which, according to historians, is actually a fictional book, doesn't really exist. But according to people who are into the occult, they say, yes, it very much was a real thing, and that the impetus for card reading in tarot and some of the imagery connects to Isis, the queen, and all that. But scholars say there's no evidence that there's any connection, and they claim that there was a French clergyman who tried to make that connection to Egypt, and before the Egyptian language had even been deciphered. So he started, according to them, the thinking that it connected to Egyptology, but that it doesn't really have any real connections that anyone can find. And it's not like he could read the language, because no one could then. It hadn't been deciphered yet. The Rosetta Stone hadn't been found. And the Rosetta Stone is the famous stone that has the Egyptian hieroglyphs on one side with, I think it's Greek on the other side. And that's how finally people were able to see what the words meant and start to translate the hieroglyphs.
Yeah, getting one hell of a history lesson here too.
Yeah, but so that's where tarot comes from. It was just a card game.
Yeah, see, I didn't know any of that. I think I had the assumption that most people do. It's some ancient card magic stuff that goes way back to, the time before time and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Practiced by the ancient wise man.
Yeah. I thought there were like an old stone set of cards that cavemen were throwing down. It was really old.
Yeah.
But it's not, according to historians. Now, those who are enthusiasts with tarot would say it is much older. It does go back to ancient Egypt.
See, my assumption, and if you look at history, my assumption with tarot cards and all of that reading type stuff, Babylon or Egypt. Because that's like where all the divination type stuff originated from. I mean, as a whole, in bulk, it came from there. And I figured, it must be some Babylonian, Egyptian stuff.
Yep. And the enthusiasts say that, yes, indeed, that's where it comes from. And historians say, nope, we got no evidence of that at all whatsoever. We just got this preacher from France who started making that connection, and everybody else ran with it. The first known professional tarot card reader isn't recorded until 1785.
Wow.
1785. His name was Jean Baptiste Alliette, and he's known as Atilia. It's French, so don't think my last name tells me how to speak French. I don't speak French. So Atilia or something like that. He was the first known professional tarot card reader. Now, how do these cards work? There's a set of cards with 22, it's called major arcana or trumps in the deck. And there's 22 different images, and each image represents something. Now, all the information I read, and Bryce said the same thing, that the cards, the images on the cards, they're just a guide. One place said it's your guide, not your gospel. That yes, it has a kind of general meaning, but what's most important is the intuition of the reader, not the image on the card. And when we play Bryce's interview here in a second, he talks about that too.
Right.
But that also came as a surprise to me because I thought, well, when you laid out the card, you have the 3 columns or whatever, that they meant something very specific. Nope. It's very much dependent on the person reading the cards and what intuition, what the spirits, what the universe, however they view it, tells them it means for the person sitting in front of them.
See, I thought it was all about the cards.
Yeah, me too.
You see the devil on there, it's like, oh shit, we're in trouble. No.
Don't pull the death card. Don't pull the death. Just pull the fool. I'd rather be a fool than dead.
How about that?
Yeah.
Money and babes card.
Yeah.
Like they need to make a new tarot deck that has money and babes like on every card. Right. It's like, my future's looking very, very, very bright. Yes. That's what they need.
Simple minds, simple pleasures.
There you go. See? I've got ideas for you out there, tarot card makers. You guys can make a killing off it.
Right.
I thought of it first.
Now, before we get into our own personal experiences, because we both had experiences, I'm skeptical. I don't believe, but I've been racking my brain to figure out how the person I talked to knew what they said to me. Yeah. So I'll talk about that. But first, let's play Bryce's interview because he laid down some very interesting insights, and then we'll talk about it.
And now we want to welcome Bryce to the show. Bryce is the popular YouTube channel Occult, and he's going to be discussing tarot with us today. So let's welcome Bryce, the guy on YouTube whose hair is nicer than mine. So, all right. So, Bryce, what got you into tarot?
Well, I had a really conservative Christian upbringing, and all throughout my childhood, I'd hear these stories of my great-grandfather who he practiced sort of occult healing and fortune-telling, things like that for a living. And I would hear the stories, and it was always posed to me in like a spooky way, but really it just sparked my fascination. And, the older I grew, the more fascinated I became with it. And before I knew it, I was sneaking books about the occult and, playing with tarot cards when I could. Tarot I got into pretty early. There's other things that I've gotten into as time has gone on, but that's pretty much how I got into tarot.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I love your videos. In fact, that's something that I want to talk about here in a minute, about your particular methodology, because I remember off camera, we were talking a little bit about how you have a different interpretation of it. And, I just got to say that I love your pick a tarot card, pick a card readings. And I think they're on point. And I think you're one of the most accurate ones out here on YouTube. And like I said, I love your videos. So as far as your methodology goes, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, starting so young, I kind of developed my own way of reading the cards. I just like anybody else, I had studied what the general meanings are supposed to be, but I think that there's a lot you can glean from just the way I look at it, the cards are more like a reflection of your thoughts, and the meanings, they don't always fit into the context. So I would say I probably read about 80% off intuition and then the rest has to do with the images and things like that I see. The way I think of it is the cards are kind of like an empty glass that I pour my mind into, and it really just kind of gives it a structure, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So I read cards mainly intuitively. So that's the best way I know to explain it. A lot of people have messaged me and asking me if I teach tarot reading and things like that. Well, I might consider doing that one day, but I kind of have to question how much I would actually be able to teach someone, because the best way I know to do it is just to train yourself to stop filtering out all the information that your mind might pick up that it kind of feels like it's impractical, or it doesn't apply to this or that. So it kind of just tosses it aside, because we receive all this stimulus all the time, and we only use probably 1 or 2% of it. Once we learn to focus on the things that are not necessarily in our direct field of vision, kind of in the peripheral, the more you're able to do that, the more those things can take on meaning. And, I think that has more bearing on a good tarot reader than anything.
Okay. All right. I have a couple of questions because, like I said, I'm fascinated by the subject in general. Do you believe that to be a good tarot reader, do you think that is a gift that comes naturally, or is that something that you think anyone can train?
I think that it's a gift that we all have. I think the actual gift part of it is being able to kind of strip away the things that stand in the way. Like for me, it came down to beliefs and preconceptions and things like that. And once you strip those things away, you kind of get at the core of who you are, things like that. A lot of people go into things with a lot of expectations that it's going to be this way or that way, and you kind of limit yourself when you do that. I think anybody can read the cards as long as they're able to put themselves in the right state of mind. I don't think I'm special in any sort of way or anything like that. People say I'm gifted, but really it's a gift we all have, if you ask me.
Okay. Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. So you basically feel that it is a matter of one trusting their intuition.
For the most part, but also it's being able to, when we look at the world, when you're an infant and you look at the world, everything's kind of formless and, just kind of colors melding into one another. And you don't really, you might look at a box and you never weren't able to differentiate that from the wall, that's because you don't have these preconceptions and things like that. I've kind of practiced putting myself into that state. I think things like that help a lot too. If you're able to just open your mind to the subtle information that is kind of always there. I always say that we're made out of the stars. There's no more a voice to the universe than the one that comes out of your own mouth. It's just when that all the information's there, in one form or another, you have access to it. I think that has a lot to do with it too. It's not just your intuition; it's an interaction between your intuition and the external world. And the way I think of it is we kind of abbreviate what we see of the external world, just to be able to handle it and make sense of it. We only make sense of the things that have to do with, getting food or reproducing, and our mind tends to kind of take the other information and toss it aside as useless, but it's there.
Wow. All right, Bryce. So for the sake of our skeptical viewers out here, why would you say it works?
Well, I mean, there's lots of, attempts at explanations, and I've even heard a lot of people just say, well, it doesn't work, or that the reader cold reads people in one way or another. And, I'm not going to deny that to a degree that may be true, especially with a lot of readers, but I think that you're kind of making a mistake when you approach the whole subject as something, you think of it as magic, the whole concept of it is kind of skewed. Really, it's just something that we don't understand. And there's plenty of things like that. I don't know if you've ever heard of Carl Jung. He was one of the founders of psychoanalysis, and he had an interesting theory on why tarot cards work. And it had a lot to do with the archetypal images that our minds use, and that seeing these images, our minds will always be able to kind of put them all together and make sense of them. And that kind of goes along with the way I think of it too, is a lot of it is a reflection of your thoughts. No matter how they're laid out, they're going to tell a story to you. But, at the same time, I feel like that doesn't explain quite as much a lot of the really dead on readings that come through. There's a theory about the way the universe is put together called the holographic universe. And that's the idea that in every little small piece of the universe, you can find the information needed to create the whole larger scale of the universe. So if you subscribe to that idea, then you can look at any small system in nature or even psychology, and within it, you can see the laws of the universe. And the way I think of it is the cards, they abide by the same laws that the sun, the moon, the earth, us, everything else abides by. So it's kind of like a microcosm. You can kind of see the systems and the gears of the machine and the way they work by looking at the cards, But honestly, I'd be a liar if I told you I knew exactly how they work, because, that's kind of what drew me to them, is they've always been a mystery. And there's plenty of those. To a skeptic, I would say, hey, skepticism is healthy, and I wouldn't ever expect anyone to believe anything 100%. I think that's probably a dangerous thing to do. But, I think the point is that they do seem to help people a lot. They amaze me even still to this day. Sometimes, I really couldn't tell you exactly how they work, but I've got my theories.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. I want to touch on something that you mentioned, because I'm a big fan of Carl Jung's work. In fact, I self-identify as a rebel archetype, if we're talking about the archetypes here. Do you know which one you are, by the way?
I'm all of them, they're all in there.
Okay.
I kind of use the image of the hermit, with my channel, the lantern and all that. I think archetypal images are very powerful, but you can do a lot by trying to channel one. It can mean things, but in reality, we're all kind of a balance, and they're all in there just to a degree. I appreciate them all, really.
Right. I really feel like Carl Jung was on to something. In fact, we recently did an episode on Myers-Briggs, it's related to it, but indirectly related to it. It's based off of, and if you know anything about that, it's based off of Carl Jung's original functions. And okay, so I can definitely see that. Hey, so Bryce, out of curiosity, what would you say your success rate is with the people you read?
It would be, of course I'm going to say it's really high, but honestly it is. I'd say somewhere around, 98% really. I don't ever have any complaints, and I have a lot of thank you. Where I give the 2% margin is the emails I don't get back saying, oh, thank you, that was amazing. I can give you some examples of, it wasn't long ago, I was talking to a girl who had to take a trip, And, I pretty much described to her exactly what was going to happen when she got there. And, this wasn't anything that flooded into my mind really strong or anything. This is just what the cards were telling me. And she gets there a week later, and things go down just exactly as I said. That happens a lot. It is nothing that I can explain necessarily, but it's something that I do put out there without thinking about it. I even asked the cards what you guys, where you were at with your channel, what you thought of it. And I seen John, it looks like did you turn your back on another channel recently or something like that, another project?
I was going to, and I'd even discussed it with Diasis in detail because I was getting really irritated with some things that had happened. So I was right on the verge of quitting. Right on the verge. And at the last minute, I was like, screw all those people. I'm going to double down on it. So I didn't actually quit, but I got really close. But I did. My secular work is changing to the point where I will be quitting that probably in the next few months completely.
I can see that you're getting a little bit frustrated, maybe with this channel. It's not so much that you're getting frustrated, you're just worried that it's not growing as quick. You're trying to give birth to this idea, and I can see in the front of your mind, in the conscious mind, you are feeling a little bit like it's not going quickly enough, or maybe that people don't like it. I can see in your subconscious mind that you do have a passion for it, a fire, and in the future, I can see that your whole thoughts on the channel is going to be, you're going to have a much more clear idea of where you're wanting to go. As far as Diasis, I see that for the most part, you're pretty, you feel like things are pretty balanced out. Your main challenge when it comes to this is, oh man, I forgot exactly what card I laid, but for the most part, I see that you don't have any problems with the way things are going. Does it sound about right?
Yeah, it does. I'm committed to the channel no matter what.
Well, I was going to give you guys some advice when it came to it.
Okay.
It could be, the card said it could be a little bit of a discouraging ride on the way, but the important part is not to let it become a burden. Keep it something that makes you happy, that you have fun with, and be sure to take a rest when you need to. John, I can see that you feel like you maybe you feel like it costs you too much or something like that. I can see an issue with finances somewhere in the picture. You may feel like you're not as supported as you need. I think that if you stick with it, it'll pay off.
Awesome. Great.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. See why I like this guy? All right. So, Bryce, we want to thank you for being on the show. And for all who like tarot, you can check out his page. We're going to have a link in the description. It is Occult Gate. All right. So what do you think about that, travelers? Yeah.
Who's travelers?
No, okay. In his introduction. I love his introduction, by the way. He's got the coolest introduction, out of any YouTube show.
Hello, travelers. My name is Bryce, and I read tarot. Welcome to Occult Gate.
And he does that thing. Hello, travelers.
Oh,
right. Then this cool ass,
you follow the show,
Solstice NES music starts playing, and it's just, I love it. Yeah, no, I love the show. It's awesome.
I'll tell you what I like about Bryce. First of all, it's like everybody that we talk to on this show comes from a conservative Christian background. It's like everybody we get a hold of, I used to be in this ultra-Orthodox conservative.
It's a sign. I think it's a sign.
Yeah. What do you think it's a sign of?
I don't know, but it's a sign.
Now,
I don't think it's a coincidence. I'm not being funny right now. I think that there is something behind that. I think it's interesting that we tend to get these people that come from these backgrounds where they're not encouraged to think with an open mind. They're encouraged to pledge their thinking abilities and their questioning and doubts to a higher power, and that higher power just handles it for them, and they just kind of, keep their head ducked down and their nose clean.
What I think it means is that, like that Dominican preacher who gave the fiery sermon against the devil's toolbox or whatever, I think people grew up hearing how all this stuff is wicked, evil, spiritistic, from the devil, whatever. And it's the age of the internet.
Yeah, it is.
So if someone tells you, do not open that door, don't you dare open that, the second they walk out of the room, what you going to do? I'm going to open that door. So they go and they're like, well, I'm home. I'm probably going to look this up, see what it's all about.
People generally fear what they don't understand. And that's the difference between the time that we're living in versus the time of the ancients, where religions, conservative Christian religions, or other conservative religions had a lot more ground, is that now people can entertain their curiosity without having to walk downtown, without having to go far and wide to find somebody who actually does this, which would take a lot more effort. Now they can just kind of, okay, nobody's looking, parents ain't around, and Google it and be like, wow, this isn't as bad as they make it out to be.
Yeah. Before, you had to risk being seen walking into the magic, like the occult shop or whatever.
Exactly.
And if you were seen, then it got back to your congregation, then suddenly your social structure changes. Now, none of that applies. People can look it up. And once people start to study these things, they realize it's not what they've been told. And a huge one for me, and we're going to do an episode on this too, is Wicca or witchcraft. Because, what we were taught growing up in our conservative Christian background was, witchcraft, the devil, Satan, evil, babies thrown into fires, all this terrible stuff. But then when you actually read what it's all about, I'm like, that's not it at all.
And the thing is, too, people fear what they don't understand.
Yes, they
do.
So
they're quick to demonize, especially in traditional cultures. They're quick to demonize things that they don't understand, especially in traditional and conservative cultures. And, of course, priests and authority figures within the religious groups would tell people that to discourage any kind of open, free thinking, because then they wouldn't be able to control you.
That's right.
But when you look at a lot of these things that are supposedly bad, dark, occultish, whatever you want to call it, a lot of times it's not nearly as bad as the hype makes it out to be. And I think that like anything, whether it be occultism, Christianity, being Muslim, you have different levels of it. So a lot of Christians or conservative religious background people, that's bad, that's evil, forgetting that within their own ranks and within their own religion, you have different levels. You have your non-denominational Christians, and then you might have your much more extreme Christians, like your Pentecostals or other cults and stuff like that. Same with Muslims. You have your regular Muslims.
Sure.
And then you might have your jihadists.
You've got all these different different worldviews and circles. For instance, when we went to see the psychic for the episode so I could get the reading done, I walked into her office and she's reading the Bible.
Are you serious?
She's reading the Bible. And I was curious about that because, I'm full of questions. I'm like, you're reading. And it was in John's. She's reading about Jesus, right?
And what's surprised me.
The funny part about that.
Didn't see that one coming, John.
As I asked her about it, I'm like, so you read the Bible too? And she said, yes, I'm sorry if you have a problem with that. But she was worried that because she assumes I'm a believer because I'm there to get a card reading, that I would have a problem with the fact that she's reading the Bible. Why? Because people who read the Bible usually are very anti everything she's doing.
Right.
But she believes in Jesus, like he's her savior and all that. And yet she has what she calls the gift, right? She said her mom had it too. So it's very interesting how you get this broad spectrum of people. Here she is, calls herself a Christian, but also practices she believes she's a psychic. She practices tarot
Right.
reading. She does all this stuff. So these days, people are much more accepted, not fully, and depending on where you live. We live in a pretty conservative area
Right.
of the country, but people are much more accepted than they used to be, even if their belief system is not mainstream.
Yeah.
So you get more and more of that. And I think it's because of education.
I think that's a good, and I do, and I think that's a good thing.
It is a good
I think
thing.
we got, because of the internet and just in general, we have a lot more globalization, and while that can take away from traditional aspects of society, the good thing about it is that it will encourage a more centered worldview so that you won't have as much extremism either way.
Yeah.
Because everything's mixed together now.
Yep. I am very anti-judgmentalism.
Yeah.
I'm not a judgmental person at all anymore. I try very hard not to judge people based on their beliefs or thinking as long as what they do makes them a good person, they're good to others, that's fine. I'm cool with it. I don't reject that. But something that Bryce said that I thought was impressive toward the end of his interview is because he's on the screen. I'm actually sitting behind the camera at that time, but I'm in the room, and Bryce
John's
knows
cueing us.
and Bryce knows I'm in the room, so he's talking to me, and you can hear him. Hopefully, you could hear my response. Okay, I haven't produced it yet as we're recording this, so I'll try to make it where you can hear it, and if not, I'll put my words on the screen so you can see what I'm responding. But he tells me what he saw in the cards about how I felt towards the show and towards another project that I have going on. And he was not wrong. He was right on both counts. First of all, he was right about me. He asked me if I had quit another project or something like that.
Yeah.
And I came really close, like borderline, hanging up a different YouTube channel that I have because of a bunch of garbage that happened and some people really pissed me off, and I was just tired of it. And for a while, I thought that, and we had talked about it, I told you about it, I thought I was going to just give it up. But I changed my mind and I turned around like, you know what? Forget all those people.
John does not do drama.
Yeah, no.
I do. Come at me. Go ahead.
You save the drama for your mama. I got no time for drama. But then I thought about it. I'm like, no, I'm not going to let a bunch of ass clowns and their behavior change what I'm going to do, because I felt like I was helping a lot of people with it.
Well,
so instead of quitting very much in my way, I doubled down on it and worked on it even harder.
I'm glad that you did, because I mean it's a really good thing what you do with the other channel, and it's kind of like don't stop the whole party because of 2 or 3 assholes that want to just show out. Throw them out. You've still got 2,000 people in the room that are having a great time that love the.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Good analogy. But Bryce said he saw that I was going to quit in the cards. So that's one. And two.
Yeah, and there's no way he could have known that, because we don't know Bryce. This is the first time that we've actually communicated, with him. I mean, of course, we talked a little bit before the show in preparation of how we were going to do the interview and all that good stuff. But I mean, as far as any kind of in-depth conversation, first time. That's it.
He didn't know me from Adam, and so we'd never had any of these discussions before. And then he nailed how I was feeling about this channel. Because I was I'm used to whatever I do just taking off really fast, because that's just my nature. I don't know, maybe law of attraction, I believe it's going to happen, and I am a very confident person, so stuff tends to succeed pretty quick.
You're not used to stuff not going perfect.
I'm not. I'm really not. I'm used to stuff just working out that I put my energy into. And I felt like this channel wasn't growing as fast as it should be growing. And he nailed that.
Yeah.
Now,
he did.
I had already come to the conclusion that I love what we do on this channel. I love it. And so I'm not going to quit. It's going to take off. It's just going to take longer. It's a bigger market, whatever. I'm going to do it. But it's interesting that he knew that those thoughts were going through my head, because they were. And
He basically said, I'm down for the cause.
yeah.
And I am down for the cause.
You always have been. You have
I said that from
no
day
doubts,
one. I'm a
no
man of my
hesitation.
word.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting that he was able to spot those things. And he said something else that I respect when you were asking him about, like, what would he say to the skeptics?
Yeah.
First of all, he says it's healthy to be skeptical, which I appreciate that he said that.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
And he also said, he's like, look, I've got theories about why it works. He says, but they're just theories.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why it works. I just know that when I do this, it works. And that
I feel like he was very intellectually honest.
Yes, he's very honest about that. And then when you asked him, what's your success rate like? He says, well, of course I'm going to say it's high.
It's awesome.
I'm amazing.
Of course it's good.
Yeah. That he admits
Yeah.
his own confirmation bias in that way. And I respect people who are honest about things like that. But he said that comment he said about how he doesn't know how it works. It reminded me of something that I was reading when I was researching for the Law of Attraction episode, where they describe law of attraction like this. Like, look, when you go to the faucet and you turn the knob,
Right.
the water comes out. You know that when you turn the knob, the water's going to come out. But you don't really understand everything that's going on behind the scenes to make that possible. Like, you don't know. And the vast majority of people don't understand it. And they said, in regards to the law of attraction, which I would also apply to what Bryce is saying, that it's enough to know that when you turn the knob, water comes out.
Right.
And really, ultimately, isn't that all that matters? As long as the water comes out, it works. You can get your water and you're good. So when it comes to things like law of attraction, or in this case, like tarot card readings, if it works, like he said, it's been very beneficial to people that come back thanking him for the guidance or whatever.
We don't know how it works, but apparently
it works.
It works.
And he made a lot of really interesting observations I hadn't thought about. He says, and I know this is backed up by psychology, that we filter so much of what comes into our brain because there's just too much to act on everything. For instance, stop what you're doing, pause the video, and just listen. Notice all the sounds that are coming into your ears that you didn't even hear while you were listening to the video. Why? Because your brain can't focus on everything at once. It can only focus on that one thing, which in the case of the video, hopefully, is the video.
Right.
And everything else gets shushed, but it's there, right? The sounds are there. Pause it again and stop and take stock of how you're feeling. And you're going to notice all these sensations in your body that you didn't notice while you were paying attention to the video, because your brain has filtered all that extra stuff out. It's taking shortcuts because those things aren't necessary in this moment, and it has a limited amount that it can actually work with at any given time. Well, Bryce made that comment that you need to see everything you're seeing when you're reading the cards like a child sees the world. Like, the child doesn't call a box and a wall. There's no label for that thing. Everything just sort of blends together. And he says you have to be able to pull from everything that's coming into you at the same time, and that anybody can do it. It's in everybody has that ability, that gift, if they just take the steps to make that happen. And I respect that over someone who says, oh, you must have the gift in order to get people to come in and pay them for it or whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a great interview. And like I said, I mean, he's my favorite tarot card reader on YouTube. And I personally am, a believer. So, and I respect the skeptics. I mean, if you don't believe, you don't believe. And I can see why you wouldn't, because for a lot of those out here who are materialistic, they're going to say, okay, well, I'll believe it when you can accurately demonstrate it on demand or show me something. They're the show me type of people, and that's fine. I respect them too, because there does involve, in my opinion, a little bit of belief in it for it to work. That's my personal respectful opinion about it.
I'm a skeptic. I'm not a believer.
Yeah.
But I respect Bryce because on the interview, he was no showman.
Yeah.
He was not playing up for the camera.
No.
He wasn't pretending. He's very kind of muted. You know,
I like his realness.
Yeah, very real, very normal.
I like his realness.
He was willing to admit
That's one of the reasons I started watching him.
Yeah, he doesn't know why it works. He was willing to admit that everybody's can do this. It's not. I'm not special. I respect those kinds of things about him much more than I would respect someone who was just trying to make a show to pretend like wearing all the genie outfit and, you know, come to me, you know, and I will tell you what the universe has in store.
Blue-haired lady,
the blue-haired lady.
Trinity Broadcasting.
Yes, not like that at all. Well, let's go ahead. The last thing I want us to talk about is our personal experiences. First, we can both talk about what happened when we went to see the psychic. And second, Yasis has a separate experience from someone else he talked to.
I do.
So why don't you tell us what happened when you went to see the same psychic that I went to?
Okay. Well, she said, and it's funny too because on one of Bryce's tarot pick a card videos that I watched, it said the same thing that I seemed to see from her. You throw people off. You have a dark energy, whether good or bad, however you want to interpret that. But you have a very dark energy. You're very different, and you throw people off, and they don't really know what to think. And she told me a little bit about myself. She said that you were good, but you've gone down a dark path, and you're in an incredibly dark place right now. And you have a lot of dark energy. Now, whether she used any kind of power to discern that, I don't know. But that's what she told me.
And you told me that she was kind of afraid of you when you walked in the door, right? She seemed afraid
uneasy.
Is the wrong word.
I'd say
uneasy.
She seemed uneasy,
yeah.
She did. She seemed very uneasy. Yeah. And that threw me off. And it seemed like we were throwing each other off.
And when you went, what I find interesting about that is that was a very low time for you. Because this was a few months ago. We thought we were going to do this episode much earlier than we did. So we went way back in, a few months back. And you were going through a whole lot of garbage in that moment, at that time.
2019's been a hell of a year.
Yeah. So,
and they say that's true for a lot of us because of the Mercury retrograde stuff, if you follow astrology. Mercury retrograde has a lot of people just all up in the air right now. So it's going around.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, what I found when I went to her, because I went first, and then I was like, "Hey, Jason, you got to go see this lady so that we can put this on the show." I'm total skeptic, but they say that if you don't believe, it doesn't work. So I'm like, all right, when I walk through the door, I'm going to drop my skepticism and I'm just going to listen.
Just gotta believe.
I just got to believe. I'm not going to run it through my head all the ways in which this is baloney because then it won't work. If it's real, I have to believe it's going to be real. So I'm going to drop my skepticism and I'm going to just see what she has to say. So I went in the door. She's reading the Bible. I asked her about that. She believes in Jesus. Very interesting point. And then she does the tarot reading. Now, what I found
she didn't have that big old pink hair, did she?
No, she did not. Again, she was very muted, had a humble air about her. There was no showmanship in what she did.
Yeah, I got that vibe from her too.
And I respected that.
Down to earth.
If I had walked in and she was wearing the genie hat with the little jewel or whatever, I would have just rolled my eyes and walked right back out. But she
looked
wasn't.
Very humble, bohemian.
Yeah.
Cool, down to earth.
Couple little things hanging around the office. It wasn't dark. There was no crystal ball. I mean, none of that stuff. Keep in mind, I've never done this before. I'd never gone anywhere like this before. I didn't know what to expect. So it was nice. It was kind of like a doctor's office with a few occult symbols on the wall. I mean, that's really what it was.
Oh, just that occult stuff over there on the wall. Don't pay that no mind.
So I had to pull the cards because I drew the cards and she laid them out or whatever. And she said some things that in looking back on later, I'm like, anybody could guess that. Like she said that my wife had some concern about the kids, which yes, she did. But hello, I'm wearing a ring, so she knows I'm married. And what parents aren't worried about their kids? I'm obviously of the age where I probably have children.
You care about your children.
That's
No way!
That's an easy guess.
John, how could you?
Yeah, that's generic.
Yeah.
She also said, you're worried about money. I'm like, who the F isn't worried about money? Of course, I'm thinking, everybody's thinking about money. So that was easy. But there was another card. I forget, I don't remember the names. But she pulls one of the, she looks at it, she points at it, and she says, point blank, what's your legal problem?
Right.
And I hadn't said anything to her about it. There's nothing on, I'm not wearing it, I'm not holding a lawsuit in my hand. There's nothing she can know, no way she can know about this. I actually had to bring a suit against somebody else for something. What it is, it's not important. And it wasn't a big deal. It was a civil matters, not a big thing. But I had to end up going to court for something. And that court date was coming up. And so naturally, I'm thinking about it. I'm concerned about it. How's it going to turn out? Whatever. And she points at another card next to it, like a dude on a horse or something. I forget. I mean, if I find the card, I'll put it on the background. And she says,
just riding out.
Yeah, she said, don't worry about it. This guy right here, it shows that it's slam dunk. Don't even worry about it. Your lawsuit, this legal matter. She didn't say lawsuit.
Tentacles.
I never told her what it was. I didn't tell her it was a lawsuit. She said your legal matter is going to be just fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and that did happen.
Exactly.
We'll say that did happen.
It was a slam dunk.
Yeah, it was a landslide.
Mega landslide. And it was because of someone else. It wasn't my attorney. It was somebody else. One of the witnesses that came in that just like threw the hoop, like wow. Jordan jumping, grabbing it so hard, the backboard just exploded, Yeah, it was that kind of thing.
Yeah, it was.
So my skeptical brain, after that happens, I'm racking my brain. I'm like, how? That is not a safe gamble. So some people who are very anti all of this and say it's all showmanship and trickery, what they'll say is it's cold reading. Like these people are really good at reading stuff on you, asking the right questions.
I have seen people do that and be good at it too.
Sure.
To be fair, I have seen people that were damn good at that.
Absolutely.
And make you go, wow.
No question. But I didn't tell her anything about it. It didn't come up at all. And that is a dangerous gamble because very few people are involved. You can look like a
jackass really quickly.
Yes.
If you mess that up.
Like, what legal? I don't have legal issues. I don't have legal problems. Most people, the vast majority at this moment, aren't having legal problems. So to just point blank say, what's your legal problem? She didn't ask. She didn't say, are you having any legal trouble right now? To try to pull out something. No, she just point blank, what's your legal problem? And she was right.
Yeah.
And how do you explain that? I don't have an answer. See, I'm not one of those people who's unwilling to admit that I don't know. I don't believe the universe told her something, but how? How did she know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to leave it at that because I don't know. And she was right about what was going to happen, and she was right about how it was going to happen, and she was right months in advance of the actual court date.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because remember, this was months ago that we went,
yeah.
And then this court date just came up recently.
Yeah. Wow.
So how does she know? Don't know.
Good question.
Yeah. So there you go. That is interesting to me. But of course, the skeptics always say that it's showmanship, it's cold reading, it's people who are good at guessing.
Yeah.
And someone who already believes is going to walk in there believing that whatever they're told is true. And then their confirmation bias is going to make them see things that they believe apply to what was said that make it true, that it's generic enough. It's like astrology. You will have a good day today. Well, then of course you will because you think you will.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the argument of the skeptics. And to their credit, seems legit.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And then they go back to, well, this is so new, and it's only been a couple hundred years old. What? Suddenly the universe decided to develop the cards. Though the people who practice it And I think Bryce even mentioned this too, say it's not really about the cards. The cards
Yeah.
are just like the vessel through which you're displaying your intuition.
Right.
You know, it doesn't have to be cards. There are other ways to do the same thing. Some people read tea leaves.
Right.
Hey, even in the Bible, they used to do what was called casting lots. And God was supposed to like change the outcome or whatever.
And well, yeah, and we even talked about this in our Law of Attraction episode, that maybe these could be energies that we just haven't defined yet, that we are able to tap into.
Sure.
And we just know how to manipulate what we don't fully understand yet.
Yeah, that's true. I'm very skeptical. I'm not a believer, but I'm an open-minded person, and I just don't know. How did she know?
I want to tell you what made me a believer. Actually, I want to talk about.
Oh, that's right, because you had
yeah.
your other experience, right?
Yeah, and this is what made me a believer as of about a week or two ago. I have a friend who was, she claims that she's really good at reading tarot, and it was a hobby that, she does. I was like, oh, well, cool. I've actually been getting into that lately. So she's like, okay, hey, let me read your tarot. So she reads my tarot. And in my opinion, everything that she said is on point. But the thing that really, really got to me, and it was something that I actually saw in one of Bryce's videos, because it talked about dead relatives talking to me. He had a video where, depending on the card pile that you pick, it'll tell you what your dead relatives are telling you. And apparently one in particular is spurring me on. Okay, so I have 3 relatives. Anybody who knows me well knows that I have 3 relatives that I was very close to. And I was close to my grandmother on my dad's side, my grandfather on my dad's side, and my grandfather on my mother's side. All right, so there's a little bit of a twist to that. So she says, okay, your relatives, my friend, they are with you. They're with you, and they support what you're doing. And, immediately I started to think about them. And I'm not close to too many people, so it is 3 people that I always talk about.
And to be clear, this person does not know that you know these people. Does not know that you were close to these people.
She does not know me that well.
Okay. All right.
No. She is an acquaintance of mine. I wouldn't even call her a friend. Not that she's not a friend. I'm just saying we're not on that level yet.
Yeah,
we're
not close enough to know about your
Yeah.
grandparents or any of that.
We know each other. We're cool with each other. We're not like in with each other like that. But so she says, your relatives are with you. And I said, and immediately I had a feeling, oh my God, she's talking about my 3 dead relatives. She says, wait a minute, don't tell me. She said, 2 men and a woman. I said, that right there was like the whole legal thing. I was like, there's no way in hell you could have known that. And I just got real quiet. And I said, what are you talking about? Because I had a feeling that she was talking about my dead relatives. Now, here's the thing. I said, wow, you're talking about my 2 grandfathers and my grandmother. You have to be, because those are the only people that I'm close to, and it just happens to be 3, and it just happens to be a man and 2 men and a woman. And she's like, no. She's like, I keep getting uncle. All right, now here's where the plot twist thickens. And this is just really threw me off even more. She's like, no, I keep getting uncle. Okay. Now, here's something I don't tell people. My grandfather on my mother's side, and Mom, if you're watching, you know what I'm talking about. Eugenio was my great uncle. He adopted my mother in 1969, I believe. 1969.
So you call him grandfather.
I call him my
he's
grandfather.
Actually, your great uncle.
Right, because he took on that role.
Gotcha.
So he became our adopted. He became my adopted grandfather. He was, but that just fascinated me, and I'm not going to lie, it made a believer out of me. I went from, at that point, about a week or two ago, I went from being an agnostic to being a believer in this now. Because when she said that, the 3 relatives and then the 2 men and a woman, and then she said, no uncle, wait, why do I keep getting uncle? I said, okay, there's no way that could have been coincidence on your part, especially when you don't know shit about me.
And if it was showmanship, she wouldn't have gone against what oh yeah, of course, your grandfather. But no, she objects to you saying it's your grandfather.
Right.
When you say that, she objects to it. She's like, no, I keep hearing uncle.
Yeah. She's like, I keep getting uncle.
Yes. If it was just about a show to prove herself right, she would just agree with you, not object to what you said. That's interesting.
Yeah, and John, you've been to my place before. I don't have any family pictures out. I don't have shit out.
All you got is the fish tank.
I've got my aquarium. Okay? Yep. And she said that. She said, wait, don't tell me. So before I could even tell her and even help her out, so to say,
right.
She said, no, wait. She's like, don't tell me.
Right.
She said 2 men and a woman.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, this has got to be real.
That's very interesting. I find that fascinating.
Yeah. But no joke. My great uncle became my mom's adopted father, who I always knew as grandpa.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until later on in life, she's like, well, we were adopted, but he is your great uncle.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
So my legal problem.
Yeah.
And you're 2 men and a woman, dead relatives, including an uncle that she could not have possibly known about.
It's incredible. And they're spurring me on. So apparently, if any of this is real, they are spurring me on from the grave, and they're saying, keep doing what you do.
Very interesting.
And don't let it stop you.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because if they were alive, especially my grandmother on my dad's side, coming from that religious background, they would have been against me. But apparently now that they've crossed over and they see everything now, they're like, no, fight on.
Yeah, how about that?
I thought it was amazing. Me personally, I thought it was interesting.
So. What do all you guys think? We'd love to know. So leave us a comment below and be sure to tell us whether or not you believe in card readings or any of the stuff we've been talking about. Or if you're a skeptic, why do you think she could know about his 2 men and a woman, dead relatives, and the uncle thing? And how could that lady know about my legal problems? Because I've racked my brain to try to figure out how she was able to just throw that one out there. And if you have a good explanation for it, me being a skeptic, I'd love to read it and see, that's how she knew. Hey, so give me some confirmation bias. Prove it to me. I'd love to know.
Skeptics are welcome.
But if you have any kind of experience like this, anything that some people believe in and other people are just hardcore deniers of, be sure to email us at the email address you see above and let us know, because, hey, we'd love to have you on the show too. I'd like to thank Bryce again for coming on. Very grateful for him being willing to be on the show.
Yeah, be sure to check out his page.
Yeah, no question. And don't forget to like this video. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. That way it'll grow as fast as I think it should.
Yeah. He said we were going to be okay.
That's right. We're going to be
subscribe, damn it.
We're going to be famous. That way you can say you were one of the first ones. And don't forget to hit the notification icon so you'll be notified when we release new videos. Yeah. And as always, thanks for watching.
Perfect.